Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this monthly in-depth ag forecast for AgSouth and Ag Carolina. Of course, as we finished up the month of October, the major news story was the powerful hurricane that went over Jamaica and then Cuba and is heading into the Bahamas as of today, the 29th, as I'm recording this. I wanted to show you some of the high-resolution satellite data that was captured of this. We had a very lucky, in terms of just timing, pass of one of our very high-resolution but very small swath width satellites called Sentinel-2, and it grabbed this incredible picture of the eye of Hurricane Melissa. Now, if you want to see what it looks like to get into the eye, these are a couple of videos provided by the hurricane hunters. And as we are flying into the eye here, you can see the incredible stadium effect. I'm sure a lot of you saw this on the news. Just an unbelievable video of what it's like to be in the eye of a hurricane. Something to remember, the eye is very warm. That's actually how the hurricane functions. It keeps all of its heat concentrated, and so its pressure there with that hot air inside of the eye. And as you pass into the eye wall, which is what this aircraft is going to do, it was encountering wind speeds at one point over 185 miles an hour. Now, we had gusts. I'm actually not sure on the official gust speed on this. I've heard 215, but the reality is this particular hurricane did have wind gusts of 185 as measured by the hurricane hunter. So that puts it in second place all time with respect to tropical systems we've observed in the Atlantic, with Hurricane Allen being number one at 190 miles an hour. And then the number two spot is shared between Melissa, the Labor Day hurricane of 1935, Gilbert of 88, Wilma of 2005, and Dorian of 2019. Now, in terms of its intensity with respect to pressure, I want to show you what it's doing right now. It, of course, has, since the pressure's come up considerably after going over Jamaica and now over parts of Cuba. In fact, it's about to leave Cuba here within the next 12 hours after I record this. But it does rank third for the Atlantic in terms of lowest central pressure in a hurricane. Wilma was number one, 2005, with a central pressure of 882 millibars. And Gilbert was number two in 1988 with a central pressure of 888. This was just 4 millibars higher. And it is moving through the Bahamas right now, and it's expected to take a track something like this over the next 7 or 8 days, which means it will eventually end up impacting Europe, going through the North Atlantic, continuing to churn up massive waves as it does so. I was looking here at one of my favorite news sites. You should go check this out. Now, I understand we're at the end of the hurricane season, but it's called deepmind.google.com/science/weather lab, all one word. And you can then choose the models you want to see. I'm using their experimental models, including their new machine learning models they've been developing, one called GraphCast, plus 2 models from the Europeans. So we have the high-res and we have the ensemble. And the reality is you can kind of play forward, and I want you to be using this in the future. It's a great resource where the hurricane will be over the coming days. By November the 3rd, it'll be clear up in the North Atlantic. And what's most important, it is not a threat to the United States. Now, as I think about this particular hurricane, it makes me just review the entire season. And all we really dealt with in the Carolinas was Chantal. This is the only system that made it in and developed, Melissa, the only one that made it in and developed in the, in the Caribbean. And Barry, which is here, barely scooted through the Bay of Campeche before hitting Mexico, which means this is a very rare year where the Gulf and the Caribbean were almost completely devoid of systems. And the reason is pretty, I think it's pretty easy to see. The Bermuda High was way over here starting on August 1st. So every system just followed it. That was one of the reasons. There are other factors to this that kept these systems out, but the dominant one was the positional strength of the Bermuda High. Now, that Bermuda High being so far off to the east also gave us this. Over the last 60 days, this goes all the way through October 22nd, with the exception of this spot in South Carolina, most of our area is in deficit for precipitation, right? So Georgia, North Carolina, we have pockets of North Carolina that are 6, 7, 8 inches off of their averages. And the drought monitor reflects this. I mean, we can still see that the region is in drought. In fact, I think about 72% of the entire lower 48 is in some form of drought. We have concerns about this because of the ongoing La Niña, which is what we're going to hit on at the end as we look out there at winter. And the reason that we're concerned is that La Niñas tend to not provide strong subtropical jet stream flow. Now remember, the jet stream can attack the United States from 2 different positions. It has a polar branch, which comes in up here, and a subtropical branch that often begins in like Hawaii and moves toward the southern tier of the United States. This tends to not happen frequently enough during La Niñas to continue to keep the storm track south and keep moisture flowing. And as a result, the seasonal forecast going all the way through the end of January suggests that there could be drought maintenance in the Sun Belt, drought developing in the Cotton Belt into the southeast. So I'm going to worry about this until it's not there to worry about. Now, lately, just look at the last 3 days. We saw moisture get through, right? In fact, let's just take this map and let's zoom in. I want to just specifically zoom in on the southeast. There we go. And so there was decent moisture from the system early this week that came through and exited, but it left a lot of southern Georgia dry, left parts of the coastal regions dry, but delivered some heavy rains into northern Georgia, most of South Carolina, a big chunk of North Carolina. I just need to see more of these. And the good news is I got one right now. If you take a look at the current flow in the atmosphere, this is the low-level winds. There is a system that's moving through the mid-south today. It's delivering very cold and very windy conditions on its backside. But this low is going to slowly move over toward us. And then we have more help coming soon after that, next week with another low that sneaks down here. And so the pattern is ripe in the near term to deliver. It will be bringing in some moisture. But we're just curious, is it something we can sustain? Because, a couple of systems delivering moisture at the end of October, November, beginning of November, fantastic. But we need more routine weather systems going after this. So as it stands early here in the morning on October the 29th, here's the system that's moving through. See the strong winds, the frost freeze issues on the backside. And we're going to watch this move toward us as we go forward in time. Now, I mentioned, you just saw a moment ago, that there's the frost risk. And I just want to let you know, yes, we've already had frost events that have gotten into the western sides of the Carolinas in pockets of northern Georgia. But over the next 7 days, again, up in the mountains, we expect that some very, very patchy areas. I'll give you the low temperatures in a minute. But since I showed you the frost risk, I just thought I'd look at this map over the next 7 days here. Okay, let's get back to that rain. Here's the system, and it's not in a hurry. It's actually moving relatively slowly. And this is the first of two that I'm keeping a close eye on. So this is just through Wednesday morning, and it's starting to work its way toward us, and it looks something like this when we get into the high-resolution models. So as we work our way through Wednesday afternoon and evening, and then get into the overnight hours and early Thursday morning, you can see, watch this go back and forth here. See it sweeping through, bringing a little bit of rain. Now, this first system is not as potent as the next system that's going to be coming through, but that one will move to our north by the time we get into, the afternoon on Thursday, the 30th. And it's interesting, the front from that system is part of the reason why what's left of Melissa will have very little chance at coming into the United States. That front blocked the United States from that system hitting. But when we think about the broader picture, here's a couple of things to consider. The pattern over the next 15 days is favoring this trough in the Gulf of Alaska, the Northeast Pacific, right? A big ridge here, and some sort of trough that lingers in the southeast and then develops into a very, very strong piece of the jet stream going across the North Atlantic. Now, when we get later, my video next month, okay, I'm going to talk to you a lot about oscillations we pay attention to in the North Atlantic, like the North Atlantic Oscillation, the Arctic Oscillation, the polar vortex. These are all important features, just not yet. They come later, all right? But in the meantime, the issue with this pattern is the placement of this trough. Now, a couple of things could change it. If it went into here, oh man, we'd be talking about nonstop storm systems. If it even backed over to the Aleutian Islands, it just got away, it would get rid of this larger blocking ridge that's setting up in the middle part of the country. So as a result, our systems look something like this over the next 10 days. There's the low I just showed you, moves through. This is now Thursday, October the 30th. We go into Halloween drier. Okay, you can see this is 8 o'clock in the evening on Halloween. We're not expecting much precipitation, none actually. The reality though is it's going to be cold. There's going to be some wind and cold behind this. We then get into the weekend. This is Saturday getting into Sunday. And what we're watching here on Sunday is right along the Gulf Coast. There's this low next week on Sunday, getting into Monday and Tuesday, that's expected to kind of curl its way up the East Coast, not moving fast. Ready? It's Sunday, Wednesday. And as that comes through, we are expecting our next round of decent rains. And I do mean decent. We could get quite a bit of moisture out of this. If you take a look at the total precipitation as forecast by the European model, the current system, it dumps its heaviest rain here in the Appalachian Mountains, and then it just dies off as you go, through the, out toward the coastal plain. So total rainfall amounts here are not very high. But that's just system number one. Now here we are. This is ready Saturday into Sunday. There comes our next system. Sunday into Monday, Tuesday. And if we just add all that up, this is about a week out in the forecast. We now see how much higher the precipitation amounts are coming up with the current ECMWF model run, suggesting that there are parts of Georgia that could get very, very wet with this. I want to go from here and just jump out. Look at the bigger picture of all of this, because all I showed you was one model run. Overall, the depth of that trough that is just living here is keeping most of the systems coming through. We have a couple clippers going over the top and maturing into the northeast. We've got our low that's coming out of the Gulf Sunday, Monday, Tuesday trying to do that. So the chances of getting over an inch of total moisture out of this, that's what the map looks like. But if you said, well, who's on the drier side of it? I just want to be clear that this potential system early next week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, while yes, one model suggests, it's going to come through and dump the rain, it's not exactly clear that we're going to get all the rain that the model suggested, okay? Now, remember, you have some options to check this out. Because of partnerships like I have with AgSouth and Ag Carolina, you can go to the AgWeather website, okay? Click on local weather, which is right up here, and then you can type in your location, right? I've done this many times. I don't know, let's go to Macon, Georgia. I haven't been down there in a while. We click submit. It's hitting all of my APIs that we've developed. These are huge databases of weather information. And you get your own little radar screen that shows up here, but you can play. You can kind of see the tail end of that front working its way toward Macon, Georgia now. And then you can come through and take a look at the chances for precip. So take note that right now, the European model is pretty aggressive on the rainfall on next Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. GFS is less, so 1.43 inches versus 3.19. We then have an artificial intelligence forecast. It's even later on Monday into Tuesday, 1.24, and the blend of models is really not very generous at 0.39. See, I like to line these up and look at them, right? And then you can take a look at the temperatures. Okay, we're chilly, right? I mean, this is not warm, but it's not diving off into brutally cold air, but we're still below normal for the next 15 days, overall in this area. Okay, so that was just a quick jump over to show you something else here. We looked at the probabilities. Just want to point out there's a big chunk of the country that is drier in this pattern. And the reason for that is you go out 10 days from now, we're still flanked by low pressure. See that? So the flow in the middle of fall, winter, even early spring, when it comes out of the northwest like this whole area goes over very dry. And you can even see that out there into the week 2 forecasts. I got 4 models stacked up here on agweather.com. And just take note that none of them are aggressively wetter for much of the country, save the northwest, over the next, during week 2, which is November 5th or 6th through the 12th. All right, bigger picture. I mean, remember a moment ago, I'm like, hey, there's this issue with drought risk here. And even with the next 2 systems coming through, the new long-range European model predicting the month of November's precipitation pattern is drier. And the GFS, which is a model we run here in the United States, its projection for the month of November is very dry. So we have to weigh this against, we got 2 systems coming through, but do we get into the risky pattern of not having a subtropical jet because of La Niña stealing the chance for us getting good wintertime moisture? Now, before I get into that, I do at least need to tell you about the temperatures, because this is Thursday morning lows, Friday morning lows. That's on Halloween. We're getting pretty chilly down here for Halloween temperatures. And that would be Saturday morning. So the overnight on Friday night getting into Saturday morning is pretty cold. So just prepare the kids, right? We're talking about lows that could touch the 30s to low 40s throughout this, AgSouth, Ag Carolina territory. Now the west starts to warm up. Now these are just low temperatures. We kind of hang on to those near normal temps till we get out there about November 4th. Our maximum temperatures look like this on Wednesday. Thursday, this is Halloween. So we're trying to get into the low to mid 60s. We then find out Saturday, Sunday, and Monday still maintains that cooler bias. And you can kind of see it in our matrix of temperatures here. European model on the top, GFS in the middle, AI model on the bottom. And it's the next 5 days here, day 5 through 10 there, day 10 through 15. Now, what we notice is that for most of the next 2 weeks, we hang on to near normal to cooler than normal temperatures, with the central U.S. back toward the Great Basin into the southwest getting warmer again. That's what happens when you flank North America with troughs. So one here and one there. The flow goes over, and then dives here. So we're always cooler in these spots. Okay, just kind of an idea. Now, everything else here is either about the long range or South America. So let's dig into it. There has been a thought that 2024 could be a halfway decent analog to 2025. These were the ocean temperatures a year ago at the end of October. Here they are now. There's one difference, and the big difference is over in the Indian Ocean, but we're questioning how much of a role that's going to have. I got to dig deeper into that. But we have La Niñas, back-to-back La Niñas, and they look kind of similar. Now, November looked something like this in terms of temperatures a year ago. We were very mild in November. And a large ridge built into the east, big trough settled into the Pacific Northwest, so it was colder in the west. It was also much wetter here. We were interesting in the month of November. It was wetter in this part of Georgia and South Carolina, but drier north of it, very wet into this area and very wet in the Northwest. So is it a good analog? Well, we would have to see the jet pushing harder, taking the trough that's here, diving it into the west, and getting a little bit of a subtropical component going. That's what happened a year ago. I mean, a year ago, the jet stream preferred to keep this trough here, whereas right now it's here. And you're going, that's not much difference. It's enough difference, though, to pull this trough back closer, the ridge here, and as a result, we go warm pattern into this area. Only place that's wet is there, and we tend to be drier overall. So we would need the pattern to progress like it did a year ago to drop a trough here to get the flow going. So I can't tell you that that's going to be our perfect analog. But if it is, I do at least want to mention this. In December, we saw that pattern kind of revert to where it is now, like this year, right now, where there was warmth coming into the west, to the Midwest, but we were near normal. And the reason I say that is because of some of the new forecasts for early December. They're trying to build a ridge west, see the warmer colors here, and a trough that's anchored somewhere here. And that would be the case. And that could also mean better moisture for us in the south in December as well. But I'm not overly confident that that's going to be the case. Now, is this characteristic of the bigger picture things going on right now, like the La Niña, which you can see here, or the cooling in the North Pacific? Or the fact that we're anticipating this La Niña to rapidly, just take a look at this. Let's just open this image in a new tab so you can see it. Take a look. We're expecting La Niña's influence to fall off fast as we enter, the middle of winter and neutral conditions to take over. What does that mean? Like, what can we do with that? And how's the MJO going to respond? There's all sorts of things that could happen here. Now, the MJO has jumped out, and it makes sense right now, given the pattern we're sliding into for the next 15 days, that the MJO is in phase 4 or 5. But I'm curious where it's going to end up later this year. And honestly, I can't give you strong indication that it's going to keep spinning its way around. And instead, it might prefer to live over here in phases 3, 4, and 5 throughout winter. And you're saying, well, what does that do? Well, that does this. You see, when the jet stream in the mid-latitudes responds to the trade winds, which are screaming like this, and there's westerly wind bursts like this, we get our best rising motion here. So the jet stream responds by ejecting that momentum out, and it picks up speed in this area, okay? And what happens is that instead of carrying that speed constantly all the way to the west coast, we tend to ridge out right in through there, and the jet goes over the top of it. And as a result, we have all of this wet weather here, but we tend to be drier in the southeast because nothing seems to come around the base, because the MJO likes to live in phases 4 and 5. Now, this is the middle of winter that we're talking about here. So what you notice is that using historical correlations with La Niñas, I got it labeled on the bottom for you, the southern tier of the United States and the southeast are drier historically. And the Climate Prediction Center released their update and suggests that November, December, January, we're mild in the southwest, near normal in the southeast, maybe a slight mild bias, but we're drier. And they have that carrying all the way into January, February, March. And this just gives me pause because I'm going to ask, is this a typical La Niña? Is it going to last all of winter? And is it going to deliver the characteristic La Niña signals? And we just don't know at this point, okay? We cannot make that judgment call just yet. But there's risk, and that's what we're trying to talk about, and it's shared across other models. If you have a look at the new IRI multi-model probability forecast system, this globally, take a look. We've got this drier risk, November, December, January. Let's go out there to December, January, February. It stays there. You then go to January, February, March. It's still in this vicinity. And so we see that some of the models are hinting at the risk of drought development, and so does the European model. I mean, in the heart of winter, we're wet in the Northwest, wet in the Ohio Valley, but see the dry signals here, here, and here. That's telltale characteristics of a La Niña. But, can you trust it? No, we can't. I mean, that's not, this isn't an exact science, and you know that. What I'm trying to convey to you, though, is that when you go back and just say, well, show me, there it is, show me what the risk is, I'm concerned, back to where we began. I'm concerned that this could be right. Now, what could make it wrong? What could make it wrong is send troughs all the way into the southwest, coming over the Four Corner states. These will spin up big lows. They go across the country. Boom, we wipe this out. No problem. It's just if we get into a winter that has a lot of clippers, they just do that. They clip along the northern tier of the United States. We're robbed of moisture. So there are many, and please don't take this as there's going to be no moisture this winter. That's not it at all. I'm just saying, are we going to be able to break away from the fact that for the last, where did I have that? What was it? There, for the last 60 days, we've built in drought. Are we going to be able to break away from this and get into a better situation? I mean, you can watch it if you come over here and go all the way over to your, your water budget. Compared to evaporation right now, Macon is 12 inches below average. If you want to just see year-to-date precip, I mean, we were wet, and then look, right here, that's the long stretch of dry weather. Now remember, the European model is like, bring in the rain, bring it on. Let's get a good shot of it here. Next, what did I say? Was it Tuesday? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? But, okay, that's what we've got. How much rest can we put in that, okay? So you need to know the risk is on the table. You've seen the long-range models. You understand the linkage between La Niña doing that. And I'm telling you, there will be sub-seasonal things that will change this. But the risk is on the table. Okay, I've hammered it enough. You know what I'm talking about. On to South America. Let's go here. Looking at the planting progress in Mato Grosso. Interesting, they're above the 5-year average by about, 2.5%. But over the last 30 days, there's actually been quite a bit of dry weather here. So the monsoon's not been coming on in just huge helpings of rainfall. Over the next 10 days, the models are trying to bring in moisture. They're keeping a lot of Argentina drier. This is now the ECMWF, again, trying to bring in some moisture. But they don't necessarily agree out there at week 2. The GFS considerably drier for more of Mato Grosso, Goiás, Tocantins. These are big growing areas here. Probably, 40% of the growing area for Brazil. The GFS is like, no, it's going to rain there. And if the GFS is right, this is going to be huge for the crop. Now, it's too early for me to be able to show you like, NDVI values or anything like early plant health indicators. But I want you to see right now that the models are predicting wetter conditions getting into November north and drier south. Now, that's actually quite common for a La Niña. If I can go find that. Oh, good, I found it right away. November, December, January, we're wetter north and we're drier south. See it? That's very, very common. Some of the long-range models looking at November are suggesting that it's wetter in through here, drier in these kind of northern growing areas, and then drier into Argentina, southern Brazil. But that's the GFS model, which is notorious for being drier. The European model is like, nope, it's going to rain. It's going to rain quite a bit. We'll be drier into northern Argentina, Rio Grande do Sul, and Uruguay. And this is a longer-term concern if that manifests itself, because some of our longer-range models, like you just saw, I'll zoom in now for November, December, January, have that region in southern Brazil along the Paraná River Basin drier. And I think we need to pay attention to this. The question is, will the rest of Brazil be able to outpace the losses they could see from La Niña in the south? So there's a story developing there that folks are going to be watching carefully. And I think I just wanted to ensure that you knew the latest. So be safe. I'll talk to you again next month. You now know what I'm watching for winter. You've seen what's going on in South America. Let's see if we can outdo this La Niña and actually get some precip in, so that next month I have a different story for you when it comes to this. That's what we're going to be looking for, okay? If not, if La Niña dominates, this is a major concern. Okay, that's it. I'll talk to you next month. Thanks.